Nick, thank you ever so much for dropping by, coming to speak to us. How has the conference been for you so far?
It's been great to spend some time with people that I've already met and kind of people within my organization, but also to meet some new people that I've only ever interacted with on social media. So it's great to put faces to names and to have those conversations and build on those the social media connections and make them real life.
Yeah. I've had that a few times today, actually. And people go, it's great to meet you in real life.
Yes.
And it seems that that's been one of the rerecurring themes throughout the events. It's like, we see a lot on LinkedIn, don't we, and social media presences. Yeah. But actually now to have those conversations it's rich.
Definitely.
And you had a fruitful conversation, didn't you, in terms of what you spoke about regarding school culture. So how did that go?
Yeah, I always like talking about school culture and school leadership, and it's always useful to sit amongst other really experienced, really expert leaders. So as much as kind of I found it valuable to speak and then solidify what I think, but it was great to hear some of the bits of wisdom from some of the other leaders on the panel. I mean, school culture is probably first among equals in terms of what we should be paying attention to, and so having it as such an important part of day one of the conference I think is great. And if it means that some of the delegates, the audience, go away with an inspiration or even just a bit of clarified thinking about school culture, then it's wonderful. It's a great job to set up a conference like this.
Yeah, most definitely. I completely agree with you on that one. But I'm still going to ask you, what is school culture?
So I would answer that as simply as the way that everybody behaves, thinks, and the beliefs that underpin those. And I think there's a couple of kind of points to clarify when people talk about culture. I think sometimes they mean climate, how it feels, which is probably more measurable in terms of survey results and things like that. But for me, culture is and influencing culture is trying to teach the organization that you run to believe and to act and to be who we want it to be. So fundamentally, that is about trusting relationships. I mean, but I mentioned it in the panel that trust is an outcome. We can't just prioritize trust. We can't just work on trust because it's too abstract, it's too big. But the behaviors that build trust, absolutely, we can invite challenge, we can be kind, we can be open and honest, we can be emotionally predictable. All those things are probably smaller bits that if everyone does it, tightens the culture in a school. But I think, and my takeaway was that it's great to be working on culture and to do those things. But if you do it in isolation, you just end up with a bunch of nice people. But the risk is educational standards aren't as high. So the idea that school culture, great, but do something with it. Like, what's the educational improvement that trust is the lubricant for? I think that's a key takeaway.
So if I am a teacher out there listening to this, and I am an advocate of culture, but I'm just a teacher, I'm in a silo. Like, what would be your response to that if someone said, you know what, I can't do it, come on my own? It sounds like it's an institutional thing. What would you recommend to them?
First, I think it's not an institutional thing. So one of the realizations that we all must come to is that we might strive for a whole school culture, but our schools are big. In my school alone, there's 180 staff. So, and it's a mature organization. So there is no way that there is a whole school culture, because how each person experiences the school is entirely different. The person who has been there for 20 years as a teaching assistant experiences the school in a very different way to the ECT that's just joined. And so we have to understand that there could be one school, but many different cultures and climates. And if you're a teacher in a department or in a year group, culture in that team can be different to the culture of another team or a culture of a phase or a culture of the school. And so everyone has influence over the culture in their teams, just by the words they use, how they behave, what they pay attention to. It's tempting to think it's influenced top down by principals and head teachers and senior leaders, but the reality is it's influenced bottom up, by what each of us individually pay attention to and how we react to different situations and how we treat other people.
Fantastic. And if I was to say, right, what would be 3 things I could go away with and do as soon as I get back into my classroom and consistently do that's going to improve the culture, what 3 things would you recommend?
So if you've got you're working in a team of other colleagues, one of the most important a couple of most important things I would say are invite challenge. You can't be the person who is invulnerable. You can't be the person who nobody wants to upset. You can't be the person who nobody questions, because when you have yes people around you, then we don't grow. So the first thing, invite challenge. But in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable. You have to ask, what have I missed? You have to say, I think I've made a mistake here. What do you see that I'm not seeing? That is, those two are probably 2 sides of the same coin. And I think it sounds simple, but if I could distill it into just 2 things, it's really simplistic. Be nice to everyone and make sure you know lots about your job, education, the school itself. Get those 2 things right, you can't go far wrong.
Amazing. Fantastic advice. Thank you ever so much, Say, by dropping by and speaking with us. So you've got the afternoon now.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to the most?
So there's a couple of talks on this afternoon, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about. But like I said earlier, it's then the conversations with the people sitting next to me, the conversations that I take back to school. These talks are a catalyst. Today is not a one-off event. Today is part of a long-term learning for all of us. I'm looking forward to taking it back to school.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you have some fantastic conversations this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks again.